Hey guys, welcome to the research stream. It's been a minute since we've done this. This is the Work With Me stream, something I do every Monday, pretty much just to gather all the news that I can. Just give me a quick second. I'm just putting the word out on Facebook, on Farcaster, and on CoinMarketCap, where I'm a partner. Hopefully everybody out there is having a great week. Hopefully you had a good weekend as well. It is Monday. Hopefully nobody's having a case of the Mondays. A lot of things happened over the weekend. We're going to go here to the articles in just a minute, where we're going to do the research and just kind of go over kind of what's been going on. A lot of interesting things have been going on. We had an unfortunate exploit on Allbridge, a long time bridge in the world of DeFi, on their core product, which was and the majority of bridges, with the exception of a couple, are mostly front ends on top of Wormhole. Allbridge Core was, I believe, one of them, but they also had an LP backing that did a lot of that. So that was the main vector, using a flash loan from Camino to just kind of do a bunch of trades and trick the supply into arbing into what eventually was like a $1.1 million profit. So, I mean, when I look at it, I'm like, it really wasn't an exploit, because it was literally using the actual features of what was going on. According to what I was just reading, they have asked everybody who went in on that trade at the same time, who just happened to be there, being able to make profit, to give that back to make users whole. What would you do? I guess is the better question. In the event that you found if you found an advantage and you made money off of that advantage, would you continue? And man, looks like my arena stream is not working. Not sure exactly what to do. I can't restart the stream, so it is what it is. One second. Sorry about the dead air. I'm just trying to let people in the arena chat know that it's not working today. But that's probably on me, because it's probably because of me. I did not start the arena stream first. That's probably what the issue is. Regardless, let's get to the articles. And we'll get started on what's there. But we'll look at the market first. So we're back above 65. Again, I've been calling for this sideways market for the majors, Bitcoin and ETH specifically, over the majority of the year, till the end of the year. I think we'll continue to stay between the 60 and 80K range, unless something crazy happens. I know that, people are calling for like $150,000 Bitcoin. Unless something changes with the way they've been manipulating markets, I just don't know what's going to cause that to happen. If clarity does not pass, yeah, I do think that we're going to continue to stay in this range for quite some time, until something happens to drive more retail, or at least institutional traffic, into buying more Bitcoin. With that said, ETH at 19. ETH has been outperforming BTC by a fair margin. With fear and greed at 37, altcoins are starting to get some decent bids here. Of course, we saw that with Robinhood, right? Robinhood You saw a bunch of people from Base and Avalanche deciding to flip over, get burnt as X liquidity, and then come right back. I don't know, man. As I've said on a couple of different spaces and streams that I've been a guest on, meme coins and NFTs are just the oil for a lot of blockchain activity. As much as I'm a DeFi guy, specifically with staking, concentrated liquidity, active plays, passive plays, trading meme coins and trading majors are always going to be there. People are willing to die on the hill of being exposed to that. People are willing to round trip in that environment, which means not take profits on the way up. It's great to hold 1,000 X's, guys. Of course it is. If you got into Ansem, if you got into even Cashcat or Juggernaut or Arrow or some of these early, even Brian or Jesse, then congrats. You should be profiting off this stuff because there's no guarantee for any of this. Now, if Ansem goes through with the airdrop stuff, that could actually greatly change the outlook of how airdrops can be done. And in fact, it's quite clever for him to do that because guess what, guys? Ansem can't sell. He can't. Once you're in a situation like that where you own a ridiculous amount of the supply, he can't sell. That's gonna well, I don't know how people feel about their reputation, their legacy these days. He can't sell anymore. Hell no, he can't sell. Are you kidding me? He's gonna have to figure out something to do to get rid of his part of the supply in ways that make sense. Then we'll see exactly how this all works out. Okay, let's look at the article. So just so you guys know, I do use Sigma OS as my browser of choice for this, mainly because I like the spaces, like the way they handle the groupings of all of the windows you can have. They have great keyboard shortcuts. I say this because I paid for a year accidentally, so I might as well use it. But I do like it. I do use Feedly for RSS for the majority of my stuff. I do have a custom crypto feed that I have here through a majority of things. So looking and just refreshing. Look at that. Did I just not mention that ETH is outperforming Bitcoin? They're almost at the goal. Hard to believe that when Tom Lee and Bitmine Immersion, which is BMNR, it's a DATCO, a digital asset treasury company, where they have most of their treasury in their company going towards accumulating one asset. In this case, it's ETH, right? There are other DATCOs like MicroStrategy, a BTC DATCO. SharpLink is another one, which is, I think Peter Thiel has decided to kind of change their mind. But there's a couple of groups that literally just took companies and reimagined them, like Hyperion DeFi, which is a hype or hyperliquid DATCO. They were selling like optical equipment or something like that. And then suddenly now they're a treasury company for hype. A lot of the BTC DATCOs, of course, they're underwater. ETH, Bitmine Immersion, they are underwater, but they had a goal, which was to hold 5% of the global supply of ETH, which is an insane idea that they're going to get it done within a year of making that statement, right? Has it been a year? It might be a little bit more than a year. Regardless, the fact that they're able to do it is insane. So good for them. You know, hopefully this leads to better things. They're part of that R&D. I think they're ETH Labs, because there's ETH Institutional and ETH Labs, and I think they might be part of ETH Institutional now that I think about it. And ETH Labs is the one from co-founded by Julian Ma and some of the others from the Ethereum Foundation. Just as a comparison, based on their statements that they put out recently, the Ethereum Foundation only holds 0.16 roughly percent of the global circulating supply of ETH, which is a very small number. You go to other foundations for other blockchains, they'll normally hold 20 to 40%. For them to hold so little is interesting, because they're working to help steward the majority of the direction of the roadmap that Vitalik continues to. Well, it looks like my stream has continued. It failed and then resumed. Interesting. Shout out to everybody who's watching. Appreciate you. Unfortunately, I'm not on the arena today. Unfortunately. I should have tried to restart the arena. I think everybody can still see. I don't know. Maybe they didn't like me talking about the Clarity Act. Who knows? Let's keep going. Interesting. Vietnam to find retail crypto traders using offshore exchanges. The Philippines has done something like this too. They don't want anyone who's not specifically approved to be a place where people can go and buy crypto and digital assets. This makes sense to a degree, right? And a lot of it has to do with consumer protections. So I know that there are a lot of people that come to me. They're like, hey, Chris, I went to this offshore exchange thinking I could, get a really good deal, an arb and trade, and they shut my account down and kept my money. Stuff like that. Stuff like that can happen when you're using offshore exchanges. How do you combat that? Well, I think this is probably the way that you would combat that, right? You'd be in a situation where, do I have two separate posts? No, we're still good. Okay, we're still good. My apologies. You create some type of KYC situation, right? So you can't be in a situation where if you are a citizen of Vietnam, you can't use a non-Vietnam exchange. No. Well, 50 million is not cheap. Yeah, license from gray market to licensed only. This is the part that's the interesting part. This is where these frameworks start to begin to be an issue, or to begin to, force the hand of multinational corporations such as Binance and Bybit. And they're often, they claim, and at least in Vietnam, it's a legal gray area. The EU forced Binance to get one of them, if I'm not mistaken. Dubai in UAE, another one. You had to have a specific license, pay for it in order to market and service citizens in that area. What is going on? Twitch has just died. Guys, it's one of those Mondays. Dislike. I guess I'll be fine on Twitter anyway. I totally forgot that the currency is Duong. We'll just call it Duong in Vietnam. VNDs. We'll just call them VNDs. There you go. Interesting. They only plan to license no more than 5 crypto exchanges during the first phase. Eligible operators must have charter capital of at least 10 trillion VND or 382 million. That definitely lessens the number of exchanges that can be in there. But what was I saying? Yeah, Mika in the EU. You had to have a license for that. Dubai with the very license, VARI. You had to have something for that. In the US, the only 2 states that have it, California and New York, have their specific states where exchanges have to have a license. BitLicense is the one in New York. There are multiple groups that have had that for years. Coinbase is one of them. Coinbase is most likely, if they're going to want to continue supporting Vietnam will have to do some sort of license agreement there, which will eat into their profits. So, but there could be a lot of good business out of that can be spun out of that, because Coinbase is more than just an exchange and just the idea of just selling crypto coins, right? They also have derivatives. They're gonna have perps. They have prediction markets. They also have limited liquidity pools that use Uniswap on the back end, specifically on multiple cross-chain solutions. They have they have all the stuff in DeFi from Solana through Jupiter. They have all the things on Base through Airdrome. So that's definitely one that they're going to be looking for global audiences to be in with that. So this is not an unexpected move. I think as more groups have their frameworks, and in a way, this is probably what would happen for the U.S. as well, right? I don't know if it's in the news, but they put out a thing that for Genius compliance. All right, I'm back. I learned my lesson. I forgot that I had a VPN on because I was doing a VPN vacation earlier this morning for, things. Thank goodness I record this, because clearly the stream is all messed up. Anyway. It'll be interesting to see how the offshore exchange thing happens across the world, right? This is the reason why Tether has a US-based coin now, USAT. If you haven't used USAT, it's available for mobile. It'll probably be rolling out more soon, but it is Genius compliant. So Tether doesn't necessarily need to have USDT0 roaming around. They'll probably partner with some type of infrastructure to allow you to allow groups. Well, they don't even really have to do that. I don't know if Tether wants to be in that game, if I'm being very honest. With how USDC is going to multiple crypto providers, crypto card providers, they're working with Visa and MasterCard. I don't necessarily know if they need to do that. They've got a huge couple, like 3 or 4 month head start on OpenUSD, which is what Stripe is coming out with. So right now, Circle is going around making all of these partnerships in multiple countries to have good USD liquidity available at that level. So we'll see exactly if they really need that. I don't know if Tether has to be there, because I think Tether relies more on their international traffic anyway. So we'll see exactly where we go from there. Let's see. So Clarity now under 40. Yes, it's good. It's definitely under 40%. From what I read, apparently President Trump went to Congress, to the Senate specifically, to talk with. I don't know if he talked to Democrats. That doesn't seem to be something he'd want to do, considering he calls them Democrats all day long. But I'm sure they probably entertained him for a moment. Who knows? I wasn't there. I just saw that he was on the Hill trying to talk with leaders about this ethics issue. Because that's the problem, right? That is the problem. There's language I saw in another tweet. No idea if it was like, Scoop or something like that, saying that there is language to make sure that no elected official in the U.S. can ever issue or market a coin, meaning a digital asset in this case. And that is probably what's going to come out in the clarity vote moving forward. Granted, there's still work that has to be done. Not only does this have to come to the floor, because Senator Thune is months behind on getting this done back in March. Why they didn't have it done, even just to bring it to, regardless, it doesn't matter. They have a very limited window before the August recess. And it's not, and if it doesn't pass now, it's not passing this year, guys. It's very simple. Transparency. I'm an ambassador for Stay With Crypto. I for sure want this to, we are going to fall behind the rest of the world, because we just saw how even Vietnam is looking at that. Thailand has a huge, has a 5-year holiday on crypto. So obviously they have interest there. Malaysia, another country. Indonesia, another country. There are multiple APAC countries. When I say APAC, I mean Asia Pacific company, Asia Pacific countries. Then you have Africa. Then you have the Middle East. You have all of these areas that are looking at bringing together market frameworks just like Clarity in the shadow of MiCA. South Korea passed one. Japan just passed one. We're definitely in the throes of falling behind. Now, with that said, we have plenty of guidance from US-based organizations like the CFTC, the SEC, FDIC, at least through this current administration, they are not going to go after crypto companies. In fact, SEC Chair Paul Atkins believes that DeFi, which is what my wheelhouse is the epitome of what the American core DNA is, right? The life pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. That's in the DNA of what decentralized finance is about. Being able to have self-custody. And that is something that, hopefully we can continue to progress with, because unless something happens with Clarity here and people just decide to take that language, which, let's be honest, the non-flippers have no idea what half of this means. And I don't think they ever will. Now, there are multiple Democrats who are going to vote for this. I think Cortez Mastro said. Also, Brooks said it would come to a floor. She's happy with the floor vote. Kirsten Gillibrand from New York also in support. Wyden from Oregon. There's a couple others that are out there. It's the others that are staunch party line people, believe that this is all optics, all ethics. That probably will. There's nothing you can say at this point that will get them to flip, in my personal opinion. If people from Elizabeth Warren's constituency, from Chris Van Hollen's constituency, want to call them and just tell them the reasons why Clarity is good, because we're going to fall behind not only in crypto but in AI at this point if we don't have the proper things in place. That's why bureaucracy sucks, guys. Regardless. And the reason why this matters, because sure, President Trump could just executive order this. President Trump EO'd a variety of things, right? He executive ordered cap on credit cards to 10%. Nobody's doing that. He could do this he could do the Clarity Act stuff today. And I don't think it gives any better sentiment to institutions to want to really just pull a lot of stuff into DeFi, into crypto exchanges, because this is an election year. This Clarity Act is something that cannot be executive ordered. It would have to be repealed once it gets signed. And that's not happening anytime the next, let's call it 12 years, I'd say. Because there's a lot of energy, I would say, to making sure that the U.S. is the leader in crypto. Not saying that they can't be without the Clarity Act, but Clarity Act is something that really needs to be passed for that to definitely be something that we can at least enforce better rules, right, on certain things. Not that KYC, AML rules aren't already in place, but to have a more stable, more concrete rule set that companies can move by. We'll continue to see the integration of banks and other big institutions, fintech institutions, coming into decentralized finance and continue the integration. There just won't be any more besides that, because I'm sure there are a lot of people who are a little gun shy about the idea of doing anything like that without a concrete piece of legislation like this in place. Cardano has a Van Rossum hard fork on the horizon. Shout out to everyone going to Rare Evo this week? No, next week. End of this week. Cardano is really fairly prominently positioned with Rare Evo. It's not necessarily a Cardano event, but there's a lot of Cardano groups that go to that event. What it means for users. Let's see what CoinDesk has to say. Really? Input Output, which is Hoskinson's group, was not the engineering firm that put together this upgrade. Hmm. Oh, they voted for this. Updates to the smart contract framework. Validator rules are being tightened. Introduces Ouroboros Laos to Cardano. I am not. It's a scaling proposal. Sorry about that. For the proof of stake consensus model. Van Rossum is the procedural groundwork for Ouroboros, both in the ledger changes it ships and that. Okay, cool. So Cardano can now upgrade itself by vote. So this is all mostly infrastructure, more performant, better ability to make changes through votes, stuff like that. Cardano holders can approve a protocol change themselves without founders directing the change. So it makes it more democratized, right? So I think that's good to see. We'll see exactly how well that works for Cardano. Cardano has a lot of ground to make up with regards to staking LPs and DeFi type stuff, but they're their own community. They can figure out how fast they want to move in the face of other blockchains around them, like Near, Polkadot, Algorand, even SHIB, I would say, in that tier of where they're at. Oh, they literally purchased 21 Bitcoin. I thought there's another company called 21. Never mind. I thought that meant something else. They literally purchased 21 actual Bitcoin. Wow. Exodus cutting 25% of their workforce. I mean, that's been the whole theme of this year, right? Even starting with, ETH, ETH Global last year. Not ETH Global, the one that's the one that was in Buenos Aires. People came out for that and were pretty much laid off after the workshop, but we'll just call it a workshop for now. The conference, and everybody is cutting down. Does that mean this is an issue of over hiring? No, I think this is just in the market that's here. Groups are needing to get leaner. They need to get more focused, especially in a world where I don't know if Exodus with their excess pay really got the result they wanted. But we'll see. I'm curious to see how more of this starts to come together. We've seen many groups actually unwind. Cypher, for example, got bought, and they're just gone by September 6th. So if you have cards with Cypher, and there are multiple groups that have Cypher cards, that's going to change. Really? So interestingly enough, they're actually buying back stock in addition to slowing down their Ether. And it's fine. They're almost to the 5% goal. So they might as well start buying back stock to help at least get a little bit more value out of that. Hyperliquid sets 500,000 hype stake for permissionless prediction market deployers. That's not unusual. So they had this also for HIP-3. So HIP-3, which is Hyperliquid Improvement Protocol. Proposal 3, which has builder perps. So anyone who has 500,000 hype could stake that and then set up their own perps market using Hyperliquid Core, at least the rails for Hyperliquid Core. So market at XYZ, trade at XYZ, a couple of different groups came together to do that. And groups like Kinetic are actually setting up shop like that and allowing others to then lease some of that space, if you want to call it leasing, to create their own perps. Now, I'm waiting to see newer types of perp markets out there, specifically in the collectible space, make their way onto Hyperliquid, which I think will be very lucrative. I remember hearing thoughts about, a Pokemon-based perp market and stuff like that. I think that would be great. But now that they have HIP-4, which has prediction markets and are permissionless, I'm not going to call it decentralized because that Hyperliquid is not fully decentralized. They still own the majority of those nodes. But yeah, if you want to be in a situation where you can use Hyperliquid Core, which is very fast and probably outperforms Polymarket and Calsheet to a degree, once that gets bigger, I do think that they eat into a lot of the product market share for those two. Just because it's just probably a better infrastructure play. We'll see. We'll see. I'm excited for that one. Interesting. Zilliqa asks exchanges to pause ZIL transfers. Oh, an exchange partner's cold wallet was compromised. That's not good. When you get a cold storage wallet compromised, what was the OPSEC on that? That's bad. Volmageddon may be brewing as a key indicator. I'm assuming that's for volume. Well, like I said, South Korea passed their framework and CBDC transactions with 9 banks in September. It's interesting to see that. That's an interesting framing for that. So the central bank is working. I don't know if that's still going on with Avalanche, with Worry. They have a digital Korean won that's on Avalanche. That's Avalanche based. So curious to see how that kind of competes with this. We'll see. So this is probably the biggest effect of Mythos class LLMs, right? Because April was frankly terrible. It's absolutely terrible. We saw multiple protocols get hacked using Mythos class or comparable engines. It really brings into question how good are security companies anymore when institutions are looking beyond audits, right? I think even for everyday people, it's like, obviously I'm going to call out CertiK here, but CertiK and Skynet, when half of these things are missing they're missing these signals, they're missing the exploits, the vectors. What do you do? And I think a lot of that has to do with this. So let's see. Yeah, I mean, I think this is not out of the ordinary. Continuous monitoring, signer controls, and incident readiness. Yeah, operational failures accounted for most of the crypto losses. And this isn't just at the smart contract level. I think at that level, everything is fine. It's everything else outside of the architecture, right? The whole KelpDAO thing with layer 0 happened using off-chain issues, right? Things that are not particularly robust from an operational security incentive. when they were able to poison RPCs and take over them. I mean, what do you do with stuff like that? This is just something that needs to be probably addressed, because also part of the fallout from that was that we saw that while Tether was more than willing to block, and freeze payment funds, which is, something they can do as a centralized stablecoin provider. Circle with USDC was only willing to do it if they had a court order. And that can be very problematic, especially in this world, especially in a world where and let's be honest, most judicial systems know nothing about how these systems work. And whether or not they'll listen to me, which is the reason why I feel like I exist in this world, is to help be a translator for all this new technology. What can we do to educate half the governments in the world on how this is the way that people are moving to? Looking past the fact that most of the fintech groups have been here for years. Visa, MasterCard, anyone who's on Canton Network, any of the big ones like Goldman, Microsoft, they've all been here in the blockchain economy, or the ecosystems rather, for the last 3 or 4 years plus. So this is not new to them, but for governments, for sovereign groups, for people who make policy decisions, this is very much new. And we need to figure out a way to effectively educate them at scale so that people can understand, guys, that the institutions are already moving to this stuff. They have. This is the year that they're already doing it. And most people still have no idea how the basic stuff of this works. And we've been in this for 5+ years. Got to figure out a way to educate at scale. Okay. Let's see. Anything else that looks interesting here? Again, this is just from today, which is good. I thought this was interesting. So workers for AZCom Marua are being paid in JPYC for, and these are Amazon employees, apparently, a delivery firm. So, in our world, I believe it's Amazon Flex, or just Amazon van drivers, right, that do DPS deliveries. They're going to pay out in JPYC. Interesting to see how this works out. There are a lot of things that Amazon does differently than a lot of groups. Like they work with open maps for their maps, and I think open maps is awesome. I think they are the absolute shiz. I think they do things a lot better than Apple Maps and Google Maps, honestly. They have better telemetry on quite a few things. So that's just my personal opinion. So seeing them do stable coins for payments on things, I think, is great. There's one thing that's really cool about digital assets that most people don't realize, is that your income can be streamed to you, meaning literally block by block. Now, I don't know what the infrastructure is for this on a blockchain they'll be using to fill these payments, but a smart contract can be paying you every second, every 2 seconds, or in the case of Ethereum, maybe 13 seconds. Either way, it's for the most part instant. You can get not the full payment, but you can actually take that payment as you work, and it gets streamed to you. And that's the really cool part about that, right? That's a really interesting part. Now, I don't know what the fees are for something like this between a JPYC and an actual yen. Maybe that there's no fees for that as they test this out. At some point, there's going to be fees, right? Because middlemen and brokers, they have to make their money somehow. So this probably gets subsidized for a little bit. This is no different, in my opinion, than currently on YouTube. You can be paid in PYUSD, which is PayPal USD. They could do a very similar thing there. When I was in Vegas 2 years ago for BTC Vegas, I went to a side event specifically for the entertainment industry, and Hollywood, all of the entertainment stuff out there, they're looking to find cool ways to pay their actual employees, not the actors, but the employees, like the gaffers, the editors, the craft, the PAs, everybody who actually works on a movie set, how to get them paid using streaming payments and stablecoins. I think it's a much easier way to do that. It's easier to at least work on the budget, because with digital assets, it's easier to prevent manipulation, probably the word I would use, and it's easier to account. So how to swap Zcash to Monero with no KYC in one step. Yeah, we're not going to look at that. We could, but shout out to everybody who uses Signal and Near. And I already covered the Allbridge thing. I might have been paused when I talked about it earlier. But basically, the attacker used a flash loan on Camino to then do rapid swaps to the LP pools for USDT and USDC on Solana for Allbridge, which in itself is really just a front end for Wormhole to manipulate the bridge's stablecoin exchange rate. It was a flash loan, so it was just dum 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 dum, and then pay the flash loan, and then profited roughly about, I think, $1.1 million or something like that. It's an interesting way to 1.65. Sorry, it's not an to say it's an exploit is kind of a reach, because this is really just using the tech. They just this is not something that it was like, found today. This is like months, maybe years of just kind of studying how the mechanisms work and figuring out a situation where you could, do something like taking out a flash loan and rapidly swapping within LPs to then create enough of an arbitrage to then, slide in and do that. They're gonna patch this, obviously, but I'll be curious to see how other protocols can keep this type of thing from happening, right? Because there'll probably be another version of it in some way. We'll see. If I'm not mistaken, they bridged it to Ethereum, the profits. So good luck with that. Genius Act turns 1. So yeah, I think it was on Wednesday or Friday. Wednesday. The Genius Act passed in the House of Representatives 1 year ago that day. Actually, no, I take that back. The Clarity Act passed. I don't know. It was genius. My fault. Hey, it turned 1. I'm curious to see why he doesn't like BIP 110. Let's look at the article here. "110 reasons why proposed temporary fork to limit non-monetary transactions of the Bitcoin network is a bad idea." Ah. To stop NFTs like ordinals, runes, alkanes from spamming the network, and to preserve BTC's main use as a peer-to-peer cash system. Now, what's interesting about this is that this is something that Vitalik would preach, right? Keeping Ethereum credibly neutral and using crops, which is censorship resistant, open source, private, and why can I not remember the S? Because the S is the one I always forget. Regardless. Secure. Now, I'm sure there are ways around. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be different things around this. Now, it's not the worst thing in the world, I'll be honest. I still think it's fascinating how they're able to build, let's just call them empires. Shout out to groups like On-Chain Monkey, off of metadata sources, having recursive calls back to, different parts of the metadata on existing coins. And that's kind of how ordinals, runes, and alkanes and everything built on top of them have become so interesting. The transaction spam, if you want to call it that, on other blockchains. I mean, they brought half the EVM chains to their knees with metadata related stuff. Uh, we'll see exactly how this plays out. I'm curious to see, but wow, fewer than 10,000 ordinals subscribed to the Bitcoin blockchain on a daily basis over the last month. 400,000 daily during its peak 2 years ago, 3 years ago. That is insane amount of inscriptions. And this is on coins that already exist. Although I will say, I don't know if with quantum strategy, and if they don't, let's say that they can't get the hashgraph stuff working and they have to issue new Bitcoins, does that metadata also carry over? Or would that be broken? Would that break ordinals, runes, and alkanes if they do that? Now I'm curious about that. I'll have to look into that because that's a very interesting thought. If I may for a minute, feel free to follow me, flix.fun / @csoriano if you want to. This is my creator homepage. Just follow me on Twitter. If you're watching for the first time, you don't follow, please do. Would really appreciate that. Links here to all of my socials. You can just find me at the DeFi Professor on the majority of places, and would appreciate the follow. Looking on Facebook specifically, Facebook and Rumble definitely need more followers so I can start streaming there. So curious, feel free to just follow me at the DeFi Professor. Thank you for watching today. And it's just something that I normally do every Monday. Been really busy the past couple Mondays working on some other projects, but looking to definitely build up that those followings so I can continue to bring you more information. And hope you're finding good value today. Right. So this is a CoinDesk article. Anyway, Genius is mandating. So the reason why Tether, USDT 0, either one, the reason why they are not going to work as a Genius compliant stablecoin is mainly because their backing is not in U.S. Treasuries or cash equivalents. Not all of it. I don't ever see Tether going that route. Now, Tether owns a ridiculous amount of U.S. debt when we're talking about Treasury bonds. They own more. I think they're in the top now 17 of all nations and entities that own T-bills. That's a very interesting fact that they have. But also with Tether, a ton of what the backing is for Tether is also in Bitcoin and gold. It's not the majority, but at least it's better than Chinese real estate paper that used to be kind of prevalent. They've gotten rid of all that. So I don't think Tether ever hits that mark, honestly, because that would be kind of outside their business model and how things work for them. So that's why they created USAT, which is US. They're the American version of Tether that is all just in T-bills as mandated by the Genius Act. There are other stable coins that I just don't know they ever hit that either. I think USDG does hit that. USDE does not, because they do a variety of things. A lot of that being in order to pay yield to owners with Bitcoin and ETH futures profits, along with ETH validator staking. That's not changing either. So USDE probably never going to be Genius compliant, but they do have USDTB, which is Treasury bill backed. That probably becomes Genius compliant at some point, should they decide they want to do that. And I don't see why Athena wouldn't want to do that, honestly. Really? U.S. regulators failed to finalize implementing regulations, issuing 10 proposed rules instead. What does that mean? Treasury Department, OCC, FDIC, and the Fed Board. The unfinished rules could result in regulatory uncertainty for STIP. That's interesting. Huh. NCUA, enabling federally insured credit unions to participate in stablecoin issuance. So, also, they just haven't been implemented. They've been using just proposed rule. Okay, that I read that wrong. I thought this was like pretty bad. Yeah, Anchorage is going to be one of those groups that's going to want clarity passed as well. It's in their fiduciary best interest for that to pass as well, by the way. Yeah, there are coins that are already exposed that will never be able to get recovered, by the way, if they do the hashgraph thing. We've talked about that in our content before. I'm not gonna rehash that. Ooh, Zcash's new node that targets Visa scale privacy at 50K TPS. I'm assuming that's with Ironwood, but we'll see. I'm not going to go into the article. France orders country's internet service providers to block Polymarket. Oh, socialism. That would be the state internet service provider, by the way. Which they can do, because they're a socialist country. Private groups. Or you can just take a VPN vacation, right? This could be interesting to see how this kind of plays out. I'll be curious to see how that plays out. All right, we are getting closer to the edge of the fringe of where I normally like to talk about. Galaxy. Mike Novogratz Galaxy lands a 15-year Texas Tech Stadium naming rights deal. I didn't know that he cared that much about college football, but I guess he does. Expanding its West Texas presence, the state attracts growing crypto investments. I do need to get a deeper dive into OKX. Shout out to OKX. They now have tokenized US stocks. And that is a terrible, terrible AI. That's awful. How can you let this go, guys? Defiant. You can do better than that. I mean, the other big news, it's not really, you know, blockchain specific, but K3 coming out and just shredding everybody as an open weight, open source AI model. I mean, that's stunning, right? If there was any type of sorry, my legs are cold. If there's any type of and I'm wearing shorts. If there's any type of blockchain or DeFi adjacent kind of coverage here, is that Kimi K3 will probably be available in Venice. If you haven't used Venice, Venice is fantastic. Venice.ai. VVV is a fantastic coin. So is Diem. It's worth betting on them, in my opinion, moving forward. Now, again, not financial advice, do your own research. But you'll get access to Kimi K3 through Venice at some point, I'm sure. Wow. On-chain gotcha hits record high. And this is due to Jupiter launching on-chain gotcha with Pokemon cards. Don't have a lot of time to talk about that just because I think it's interesting to see that collector cards have found a nice home on chain, especially because it fits hand in hand, right? NFTs, non-fungible. Every token that's an NFT is unique. You definitely want that for things like cards, although they're more RWA like now than anything than NFT. So being able to have ownership through NFTs would be interesting. I hear that they're getting lending underway as well, so there's a DeFi spin for that, but we'll see. SBI is in Japan. They're going after some groups. They gave Gauntlet 5 million, I think. 5 million or 5 billion. One of the two. I think it's billion. And that's a huge DeFi vault manager. We'll check Google real quick. Not for tech, but let's just look for crypto. U.S. day traders flock to the most dangerous product in crypto. That's probably a prediction market. Oh no, perps. My bad. On certain corners of TikTok, baby-faced investors flaunt the sports cards and villas they claim to have bought with their winnings on highly leveraged derivatives, which perpetuals are. Guys, stop doing stupid shit like that. This is not the time to be taking leverage. These kids are just good guessers. On Hyperliquid. Yes, that's correct. You can wake up the next morning, your position just gets liquidated. That is hilarious. Not to laugh at losses, of course. But in the world of DeFi, you should be in a position where you are benefiting off the behavior of other farmers. Shout out to everybody on Hyper EVM doing that specifically through any of the LP providers like Project X, stuff like that. Project X, HyperSwap, various other things. I found out that Brahma went out and they're now HyperFi. So shout out to Andrew and HyperFi. Curious to see where that goes from here. But yeah, so nothing crazy here. Robinhood, oh boy. They're getting in prediction markets as well. I don't know if it's their prediction market, if they're white labeling something else. I guess we can find out really quick. If you catch my Beat the Banks from Friday, which is on my socials, we do talk about Robinhood for a little bit in terms of how easy is it to get to DeFi from Robinhood? It's actually fairly easy. Uh, hmm. Maybe they're their own prediction market. I don't think they do. I'm gonna have to look into that to find out exactly where that's coming from. But is Hood a good buy right now? Yeah, sure, sure. Why not? I personally wouldn't hold it spot. I would rather trade it on something like BuyReal on Solana. Shout out to them. Or other X stocks type things, and just do concentrate liquidity plays on that. I think that's the better play than holding it spot, just because the manipulation, the craziness of the market, the chop. Uh, why not profit off the chop instead of just getting chopped? That's just my personal spin. Anyway, way over the time that I normally have for here. Apparently, it says I've only been on for 44 minutes. That's not true. Uh, I need to learn to make sure I'm not on a VPN doing research on DeFi protocols before I come online. So I apologize to everybody who's trying to look on the arena. Shout out to everybody from there. Shout out everybody on, of course, on X, on Twitch, on YouTube. We'll be back on Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern, for our Total Value Locked podcast, something we've been doing since December 2021, where we look at the news of the week, much like I'm doing now, but we do it with a panel, and we go over whatever's been happening between now and Wednesday, which I'm sure will be quite a bit. So we'll be talking on that show then with a great panel. We'll see you then, 1 p.m. Eastern, here on these exact same channels. Take care. Peace.